So 14.2 what? Cows, camels, dogs?
Excitement.
Fun.
Fun.
Creativity. Start again.
Creativity is about
Freedom to develop ideas in your own way.
Making learning fun.
An exciting approach to learning.
Doing things differently, I think. That's what I'm going to say. Doing things differently.
Imagination.
Your interaction of your mind, your soul with the environment.
developing curiosity in children.
Painting.
Excitement.
Very, very important. That's not a very good answer.
The bit about the job I love the most. Creativity should be at the crux of everything we're teaching, to engage children, to give them a love and excitement for what they're learning.
I think you can see creativity everywhere in the curriculum and outside the curriculum.
It's about providing a curriculum that's exciting and enriching for the children.
Creativity is you as the teacher being creative with what you're teaching them.
The concept of creativity needs to be at the heart of all teaching.
And to be a creative school, everybody in that school needs to actually have the prescription cut. And for you to be able to say, it's yours, you know what your children need, you know what each individual child in your class needs to push them as far as they kind of maximise the potentials that you can. Be as creative as you possibly can.
Creativity for me is all about thinking, right, this is my objective. This is what I've got to teach. They've got to understand equivalent fractions.
It's really daunting. I sat down and thought about this all last night, and then when you asked me, I just can't think of anything creative I've ever done.
Creativity is about everything. You know, you're teaching a 2 times table. You can be creative how you do that.
And so you're always thinking, how am I going to achieve that? And you have to think creatively.
So I'm always looking for things that are the children enjoy, or asking them even.
We used to stand up and say 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. You know, creativity is much, much more than that.
I could stand in front of a class every day and teach the objective. The learning wouldn't be there.
They enjoy it and they feel freer and are more able to question things, have a go at things, test ideas out.
And then if you can engage them in that early enough, you hope that they will keep that engagement through their whole learning life.
Everything you look at this direction from one day, maybe look at it differently from another day.
Am I going to get them to be the equivalent fraction? I don't know if that would work, but am I going to take them outside and show them something? Am I going to get them to do something in groups? How am I going to really get across to them this understanding of this particular concept?
It's sort of like losing the rules of a normal lesson.
Flexibility is crucial to the teaching profession.
You've got to be able to respond to the children and the work that they're doing and how they're getting on.
I took the children out to the woods last week to do some creative writing, and suddenly the children found this den and they got really inspired, so we went and got into this den and we sat there and we talked about our experience in there, and it really engaged the children. They came up with fantastic descriptions of the woods, and I hadn't planned for that to happen, but it was something they discovered, so I thought, well, let's explore what they found.
You're being creative, you're being flexible in what you're doing, and you're explaining why you're changing what we're doing, so they can see when they're working, if they get a good idea, what they can do.
You have to make your environment in your school to be flexible friendly.
You have to be flexible in all lessons every day. I mean, I'm always looking at what the children can do, seeing how they're getting on and adjusting things as I go. And I think it's really important that you don't sort of have a plan and decide that you have to rigidly stick to it.
One of the most important interactive techniques that we use is questioning.
Well, I always find dressing up.
Music.
We use a lot of drama.
Role play,
DVDs,
Vikings come into school.
Lots of hot seating,
objects or pictures or things.
freeze framing.
That's a good way of making children get inside, or allowing children to get inside how a character feels.
first-hand experience.
Get them off the school site if you can. Use the school grounds for learning.
Actually getting them to be involved in the learning.
I quite often will don a costume and go in as a character, and that's always really exciting for them. It never seems to faze them that it's obviously me.
I really wanted to bring a lesson in geography alive. So rather than the children just looking at pictures and images, I decided to bring in suitcases, and the children had to guess where I was going on holiday by unpacking my suitcases, feeling the clothes, trying them on.
Getting them to be the numbers. So we aren't just the number that, you move the number 2 places to the left. Or, right, these are my numbers. What's going to happen when I times by 10? Right, we've all got to run to the right, or we've all got to move to the left.
I've used creativity in maths. We've been working with money, and I've set up a shop and had role play for the children. So they've actually had a context to the purpose of money. Because you give them these plastic coins, it doesn't mean a lot, and the understanding of value. So we've had a shop, and they could go and buy things and get change. And I think that was really important because it really brought the idea to life.
Or in science, when you're doing circulation and the oxygen moving to the muscles, getting them to make a great big human body. So you've got some people being the heart, some people are the lungs, some people are the muscles, and they've got a football, and that's the oxygen. And we're moving the oxygenated blood round and the deoxygenated blood back to the lungs and the heart. Just thinking, how can I make them another way of making this real, other than just perhaps seeing it or hearing it?
That's probably the most important thing to do. We have to model.
I think children need to see you as being a creative person to inspire that in the space and to know it's a safe place to be creative.
But you've got to model not so much the creativity, but actually you've got to model the courage of being creative.
Quite often like to step out of the teacher role and make it seem like we're all working together. So, this news has just come in, or I've had an email off this person with the task, and then I can model being in the same position as them.
If you're asking the children to challenge norms and differences, to break out of that box, well, we ourselves as adults and professionals must be prepared to do that ourselves. Therefore, we know what it feels like and the strains and the difficulties that a child may be faced with it.
I have a very creative class at the moment who come out with the fantastic things, and I kind of like to go with that as well. So there's a balance between introducing the idea of creativity and creating this place where children can feel they can express themselves.
So you've got to model that actually have a go, and maybe you're not perfect at whatever you're doing, but it doesn't really matter because that's fine.
So you are teaching them, how to react to creative ideas, what you do with them. Do you just ignore them, think nobody's interested, or share them, see what other people think? They might not like them. And then what you do if nobody likes your idea. You don't need to cry, it's fine. You've shared it, nobody liked it. See if you can think of something else.
So the children can see that you're in the same position as them, and then they can have a go at doing it as well. I was talking with the children a couple of weeks ago about what they think make good lessons, and it was really interesting because a couple of them mentioned, when you're really excited. So obviously how we behave towards the children in lessons has a real impact on how they feel about a lesson and how confident they feel to join in. I often find that I don't plan that far in advance because I can't. I need to look at how they've got on and where they've got to, and so I plan sort of 2 or 3 days at a time to adjust for that. You
can't just sort of, in your planning, right, this is my objective, creativity box. Well, I'll give them a coloured pencil, that'll make it creative. You've got to think all the time, how am I going to make this learning effective? And you have to be creative all the time.
The question was again, I'll try again.
The art of being successful in a classroom is to be well planned.
So you haven't just randomly decided today we're going to do a play, today we're going to draw a picture. You decided, well, I want them to learn this, and therefore this is the approach we're going to take to it.
But then it's also planning not just for us being creative as teachers, but letting the children be creative as well. So it's planning opportunities where you give them a starting point, but then they are free to come up with ideas and of where they want to take the learning themselves.
And thinking about new ways that the children, they're not stale, the children haven't done that 100 times before. They're going to think about, oh, this is a new idea.
The creativity is there for a reason, because it makes something more fun, and you think that the children will learn more because of it. That should really be the main reason. Will they learn through this? If not, why are you doing it?
Creativity for me is all about risk.
It can be scary.
It can be scary for all of us.
As a new teacher, it can feel quite risky.
You have to take risks. That is kind of scary. It's very difficult as a teacher not to go in and try and guide them through in the way that you want to do it, but to stand back and let them be creative, give them a bit longer than you normally would to come up with the ideas.
It would be scary with a class that perhaps you didn't know.
And I want teachers in this school to be risk takers, and I actually had that as one of my performance management targets for all teachers in the school. How are you going to be a risk taker? Quite interesting, you know, expecting someone to say, I'll jump off the roof on Friday, you know, it's not about that, it's about how can you challenge.
If you decide you're not going to take these risks, then life isn't going to be that exciting for the children, and you want them to think, yeah, I can take that little risk myself and do something in a little bit of a different way.
I think if you ask any of the children what creativity is, they'd probably say fun, because you know, we have a great time, and I really believe that if children are having a good time, if they're engaged and if they're enthusiastic about what they're doing, the learning is so much better. Because it's fun, basically. I think it's fun and the children think it's fun.
I use creativity to engage the children in the learning process.
Because over the years, experience has taught me that it's a great way for children to learn and an exciting way for children to learn.
If you did the job in a routine, in a mundane way, you wouldn't get anything out of it.
I think if you can't encourage that creativity in primary school, then you never can, really.
It brings purpose and meaning to the work that they do, I think.
You know, it would be unrealistic to say we can do this 5 days a week every single day, but you can certainly make a lot of your week creative and exciting for the children.
I think when you've taught for a long time, you need to keep the teaching vibrant for yourself and for the children, and creativity can give you that.
Classic mistake, get your textbooks out, let's have a look at page 24.
What kills creativity?
Fear of ridicule.
Boredom.
If they're not interested in it.
Routine.
Telling them they're wrong.
What can kill it is trying to stick to a topic that you're doing that the children are not interested in.
Repetitious learning, or repetitious teaching, because of course we have to remember that teaching and learning don't always coexist.
The kids are afraid of doing something that is slightly unusual or perhaps not something they're used to, and they're afraid they're going to be made fun of. They're not going to want to do it.
Not being flexible sometimes can kill creativity.
And also being creative for the sake of being creative, deciding that you want to be creative, therefore you're going to try and have a lesson where you're all jumping about or you're all painting, or, you know, there's got to be real purpose to it.
Anything you do is right. You don't all have to do the same piece of work. So telling them they're wrong, I think, is the worst thing you could say to a child, or trying to say, no, you can't do that.
Break away from the schemes, throw them out the window, and think about your professionalism as a teacher, that you know what your school, your class, your child needs. You know them better than anyone. So therefore you know how your child ticks, and you know therefore how best to teach them.